passionate woman and a people connector who had a natural gift of building communities of people around her. Her love for her family and friends was boundless, and she was deeply rooted in her Catholic faith and proud of her Irish heritage. She's always been the glue that held our family together, and outside the home, the one who would draw her friend groups together for dinner parties, Notre Dame game watches, book clubs, and trips with her group of merry widows to the Pasadena Showcase House and on the Metro Link to the LA Philharmonic and the Amundsen Theater, where she and our father had season tickets since the inaugural year. She had regular get-togethers with friends to play Mexican train dominoes, and she met religiously every Monday morning at St. Anne's Church with a group of money counters who would tally up the collections from Sunday's masses. She made a big effort to never lose touch with her high school and college friends. After retirement, when she had more time to spend with them, she went on long trips with a large group of them and returned to show us photos of all the good times they had in several locations around the US and internationally. She would be giddy as a kid, telling us stories of all the things they did and the fun things they did together. And those friends who knew her from grade school or high school knew that her social nature and she was around other people, not just her friends, but strangers as well. She always went over the top in welcoming people she was just meeting for the first time and making them feel like they were the most important person in the room. She loved getting people connected. She never passed on the opportunity to make new acquaintances and to nurture those acquaintances into friendships. The first example of this that I'm aware of is when we moved into our first and only family home on Orange Knoll in 1964. It was in a newly built housing tract with lots of young families. Whenever she would meet a new neighbor, she would run home and write down their name, their spouses and kids' names, and which house they lived in. As we were growing up, we always thought it was really dorky, but it all seems to make sense now. She was developing her social network decades before Facebook. In our middle school and high school years, she was known and loved by all our friends. Our home quickly became the favorite gathering place of all of our friends before going out on weekends. There was never a dull moment in the Reich house, and Mom thrived on the chaos, commotion, and laughter. Years later, at the parents' weekend at Notre Dame, the consensus among Kevin's classmates was that she was the nicest parent there. Looking back as adults now, we find it absolutely amazing that she and our dad were able to keep 7 kids on track, get everyone where they needed to be, and be so involved in our lives in the days before cell phones, word processors, ATMs, and Uber. They both sacrificed a lot for us, sleep being one of those things. The importance of a good education was strongly emphasized in our home, to the degree that if our procrastination in writing papers kept us up late, it kept Mom up late as well. She became our midnight typist in the effort to get the finished product onto the teacher's desk in time. We handed our papers to her page by page as we completed each, hour after hour, through the wee hours of the night. She managed to decipher all our scribbles, arrows running across the page, and stars in the margins, and got it all done right, often pulling an all-nighter. 2 or 3 nights later, she would repeat the same thing for another one of us. 7 kids is a lot. We all felt immensely thankful, yet guilty at the same time, that after we handed our final handwritten page, we'd be able to go to bed while she stayed up typing. And we knew a perfectly typed paper would be waiting for us on the breakfast table in the morning, sometimes with her slumped over it. She loved helping us practice for spelling bees, so it's no wonder that a Reich always came home with the trophy. Family was everything to her. She loved all holidays, especially Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and St. Patty's Day. On St. Patrick's Day, she sent all of us to school with "O Reich" written in Kelly green on our lunch bags, in Mom's impeccable penmanship. More on that later. Mom made a big deal about every holiday and went all out with food and decorations. Sometimes she said she even liked Thanksgiving better than Christmas. It was about the togetherness and sharing good food and good company, more than the gifts. She sent out Christmas cards each year with a photo of our growing family, all in some sort of color-coordinated outfits. Included was a one-page Christmas letter that detailed all the family goings-on with updates on each kid in order, Anne through Mary. It always seemed really corny to us and read as a brag page, so we started writing our own spoof Christmas letters and threatened to mail them out to her entire mailing list if she didn't stop writing those letters. We would take our own words and in a ridiculous sort of Monty Python style, turn them around, or we would create scenarios where her beloved children were now living with questionable moral values. A line she wrote that read something like, quote, 1979 has turned out to be another fantastic academic year for Anne, who has again been included on the Dean's Honor Roll, in addition to her busy extracurricular schedule of blah, 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 would now become something like, quote, despite our best efforts, Anne has dropped out of school and run off with her boyfriend, who is 20 years her elder, to help raise his children on a commune outside of Boise, Idaho. Or we throw in a story about one of us serving a jail term for stealing apple pies from McDonald's, a hamburglar of sorts. Or one of us marrying a cousin and moving to Arkansas to open a wedding chapel that caters only to inbred family members. Or wrecking the family car and getting it fixed before mom and dad came back from an out-of-town trip. Or about the police solving the mystery of the damage to our motorhome following the apprehension of a band of midget circus performers. Now, some of these stories may have had a basis in truth. So we all had a great laugh as we read it to her, and her reaction was always the same in a high pitch, kids, with an ear-to-ear grin on her face. The jokes, of course, were always doubly funny to us because, unbeknownst to her, some of these stories did have truth behind them, and we still had it hidden from her. So when we didn't follow through on our promise to send it out to all our friends in our protest over corny letters, she became emboldened the following year. She intentionally left the newest issue of her corny Reich family Christmas letter out in plain sight where we could see it, likely in hopes that we'd create another spoof, which we did, of course, because she loved those letters. Speaking of custody, and was being walked down the hall past her late at night. It's titled A Hallway Night, Patricia Reich, January 15, 2019. We walked slowly in opposite directions, down the hospital hallway late at night. Me surrounded by loving family, joking and telling family stories, you followed by a security guard. You are young. I do not know you. You have not touched my life until this brief moment. I glance into your beautiful eyes and see a real person. Who are you? What is your story? Who do you love and who loves you? Who brought you off the cold street inside a building filled with human kindness to spend the night? We pass one another, dragging our weary bones. I say a silent prayer. God be with you and yours. And that was our mom. At this point, Lisa, my sister Lisa,